All right, everybody. Welcome to the Capes Cast podcast. My name is Ryan.
I'm Jeremy.
We're here to talk about comics, talk local shop. Think of this like kind of like a one shot here. We're just trying this out for the very first time, but just here to discuss comics that came out last week and hopefully have enough time to talk about comics that are coming out next week.
Yep.
But yeah, man. I guess just let's get into it. Immortal Thor came out. This bad boy.
Do it. Yes.
The long awaited.
I love it so much I bought it twice, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you, dude. I mean, this is long awaited. Al Ewing says he's doing his Immortal Hulk thing to Thor. Seems like he's setting right up for that. I mean, we could talk a little bit about what the first one set up that leads
Yeah,
into
I,
this
I was
one.
just gonna say like let's catch people up if they haven't read the first issue or if they need a refresher.
Right.
So you want me to take it or you want to do it?
Yeah, go ahead, man. You're
All
the lore guy when it comes to Thor. You know a lot more than
right.
I
Okay, let's
do.
do it. So first issue opens up basically we've moved past Donny Cates' run, and it's a new era for Thor. He's sure of himself. He's confident as the Allfather, as the King of Asgard. The hammer's been restored. He's wearing the classic Kirby outfit. Everything's good for Thor right now. Loki gets mixed up back up into things. And then, so with Thor being in this new status quo, he decides to take a break, from being the king and spend some time on his other home on Midgard.
Right.
And, he's just hanging out in New York, he's busting up some crime, drinking some sodas with some people, just hanging out and just being a hero, being the Thor that we know and love. And, he's a storm starts to pick up in New York City, and he like challenges the storm and says, okay, I'm the god. I am the god of storms. I am the god of thunder. So obey me. And it doesn't listen. Instead, lightning strikes the Statue of Liberty. It completely destroys it, starts causing chaos around the city. And the reason why is because this storm answers to Utgard Thor, Tyrannos, who is the Utgard god of thunder. There's a lot of, mystery, mystery around this character, what Utgard is, what Tyrannos is. So
What an elder god is at this point,
yeah,
right? An
exactly.
elder god.
Right. So they have their face off, and then we jump scenes over to Gaia, which is Thor's mom. So an interesting thing about Gaia is she is one of the elder gods, but she also sits on every Earth pantheon.
Right. So this is kind of ignoring the whole Phoenix Force thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of what it sounds like. I don't know that Al Ewing ever even said, "Hey, this is a thing." I think that might have just been something Aaron cooked up, and then it was kind of just left with Aaron.
I don't really like that retcon adding.
Yeah,
I'd rather Gaia be Thor's mother.
yeah, it's weird. Well, yeah, because I mean, and the way they explain that retcon is like he was dying, so she gave him like the fire of life, and that's why he is who he is.
Right.
Okay, sure, fine, but that doesn't. I don't know. We don't have to talk about it because it's just annoying and it's dumb.
Exactly. It doesn't even matter to this. Gaia is Thor's mother. She's
So yeah, right. Ewing establishes that Gaia is his mom, and she's doing some shady stuff behind the scenes. Like we don't really know why she's working against her son,
right.
And or if because she's also sitting down and talking with Utgard Loki, who we don't know who that is. We don't know anything about any of these other god characters that Ewing seems to be introducing.
Right.
So it's just kind of like normally I would be like, I don't really like being in the dark, but I trust him.
Yeah.
He hasn't really steered us wrong before. So
right.
he seems passionate about the project. So why not?
Right. And I mean, if Immortal Hulk is anything to go by, this is going to be a setup for a long, it's going to pay off little by little by little, so
right.
It'll be all the better for it. But I mean, we only really see Utgard Loki at the end of the first issue, and we don't see him again. Right.
Right. And the other thing I did miss out on is there's that sequence with Thor and Loki, and when Loki restores the Bifrost,
right.
And they have that quick exchange where Loki's no longer king of Jotunheim, and things have kind of changed for him, and he's going down a different path. Thor's not too sure about it, but he's willing to give Loki a little bit of good faith and say, hey, like you're my brother, like you just fix the Bifrost. We'll see where it goes.
Right.
You know, so that's where we leave we leave Loki in that issue there. But I guess now we can talk about number two.
Yes, sir.
All right. So issue number two opens up with another of the Eddas, which are like the Norse myths essentially.
Right.
So kind of like what Ewing did with Immortal Hulk when he was doing like Bible verses.
Right. Yeah. We're getting
Whereas
that similar type graphic in
yeah,
the
exactly. And that first page, I'm assuming instead of being all black, it's like that parchment style page, and then it's like just this one says, "Trembles Yggdrasil's ash, yet standing, groans that aged tree, and the Jotun is loosed." I would really need to do some like heavy Norse mythology reading to understand what like the context surrounding these is, but I'm sure it's probably just him being cool.
right. It's him taking what he did like biblically for Immortal Hulk, what he's doing here in
Right,
Norse mythology wise for
right.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm kind of liking that whole feeling of being back into immortal space where we're getting this kind
Yeah,
of, it feels like a similar, like it really does feel like he's doing the same thing he did to Hulk here, like with this in that brand. It's very Jonathan Hickman like, where it's like, this is the brand that's, it's me. Like that's out. If I see pages like that, that's Al Ewing. If I see graphic pages for Jonathan Hickman,
right. Or even if I see Immortal, I know that it's Al Ewing.
correct.
Or I know that it's going to have that quality of storytelling at least.
Right. I guess minus Immortal X-Men, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but like
yeah,
yeah, generally speaking, if you're gonna get an Immortal book, it's probably gonna have Ewing's name on it.
yeah,
I just think moving forward.
right.
But issue kicks off with a flashback where a young Odin is making his sacrifice to the world tree to gain that like cosmic knowledge. You know, he sacrifices his right eye, I think it is. Yeah, his right eye.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, he gets like sucked in by the tree and he's thrown out shortly after with these new powers. What's interesting though is the what what Yggdrasil tells Odin as it's giving him this knowledge. So I'll just read it. It says, "Yes, this is the lesson. This is the parable. The story always changes. The meaning always remains. There is always a sacrifice, always a cost to bore, son, for the winter to end, for spring to come again. You have made your sacrifice, poor son, and in time to come, your children will make theirs." This I don't know if this is implying that Thor is going to make a similar sacrifice to the world tree that his father did. And if he is, we've already seen this before.
Right.
You know, and at the end of Dan Jurgens' run during Disassembled, I want to say it's Michael Oeming, I think is the writer on that.
Mhm.
Um, he sacrifices instead of one eye, he sacrifices both eyes to the world tree to stop the coming Ragnarok that Loki has started.
Okay.
And he becomes the Rune King. And he is able to like use basically every ounce of the all force of the All Father's power. He has like use of all of the Norse magic runes.
Did he
Like
have the power cosmic as well?
I don't know that it's a power cosmic. I mean, he's had it before when he
Right.
was the Herald of Thunder, but like I I don't know that it is related to the power cosmic in any way.
Okay.
It's basically like the strongest possible version of Thor I think that we've ever seen.
Right.
Rune would be.
Yeah.
But it because he was able at that point in time he was able to interact with those who sit above in shadows, and for those that don't know, they're just like the gods of the gods.
Right.
So to tie that back to this, these elder gods could be those gods, we don't know, you
Right.
know, because the last time we saw those characters was at the end of Loki Agent of Asgard,
Correct.
and that was like during Secret Wars, and when the universe reset, we don't know what happened to them.
Right.
Like they've just kind of like been on the back burner for now. So I can't imagine that Ewing won't touch on them because he used them in a previous run, and he's very, you know, we know him. He's going to use a lot of stuff he's used in the past.
Right. I mean, he's continuing Loki's thing from Defenders, everything he set up from, Agent of Asgard. It's basically what we've talked about before, that this is going to be a Thor and Loki book. It's going to be
Right,
not really
exactly.
just Thor centric book. It's going to also be Ewing loves his Loki. You can totally
Yeah,
tell.
I think this book only benefits from having like as much development in the central cast as you can get, like
Absolutely.
Thor, like Loki, and you'll probably get some more Odin stuff to give us context on why we are where we are.
Right.
So, like it could go anywhere. He has 50 plus issues planned,
Right.
40 already written out. So it's like
I'm
he's he's
excited.
cooking, bro. He's cooking, I'm telling you.
Yeah, man.
But, I mean, that pretty much wraps up that intro. It's just kind of like almost leaves like a little, a crumb trail for us to follow in terms of like if Thor will make another sacrifice in the future, I guess.
Right.
We go back to present day, and he is continuing his fight with Tyrannos. It's badass, dude.
I know, man. This
every,
moment had my jaw dropped where
every page of this fight from last issue to this issue
yeah.
has just been like has just been the best, man. I
Yeah,
don't know
and
what to say.
Cocolo's art really is great, and I'm loving the way he's using the lightning as shading. Like
Yeah.
light as shading. I'm loving how that
Um,
works.
did okay, so I'm gonna jump to the very end of this really quick.
Yeah,
They talk about like the sketches that Alex Ross did
yeah,
for this new costume. And in that, Alex Ross said that he wanted to use like the reflection of the lighting as a form of shading for Thor, which I think is badass, dude.
yeah.
So the fact that not only do we see that on the first issue, like the cover
Right.
of the first issue, and on this right here,
Yeah,
we also see it in the art. So it almost seems like they're all part of that team, and they all had a very central role in like
right.
design how Thor will look throughout the series.
Yeah, because every time I see Cocolo do that same thing, I'm like, this is awesome. It's like totally reflecting the cover. Alex Ross and him, you could totally tell
Yeah,
that.
and I don't want to get too sidetracked because we have a lot to talk about, but they did tease another costume coming into the series later on,
Hmm.
also being designed by Alex Ross.
Wow.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's like a topic for another day because I could talk about all the behind stuff, like all the behind the scenes stuff that I've seen or read about the series already.
Right.
It's just and like because I'm on his newsletter and he posts about it every month and it's cool, man. It's great. But yeah, they're fighting and the dialogue is just so awesome, man. Like he really and if it feels like Silver Age but modern.
Right.
Like everything feels so like he's so like it's got the these and the thous and it's got like the gravitas that you expect Thor to have when he's like speaking, um and then so like their fight kind of comes to a conclusion with an ability we haven't seen Thor use. Well, so prior to like the 70s, no 80s, I would say probably I don't know, it's weird, man, because like at what point I don't really recall, but Mjolnir used to have the ability to traverse time, go to different dimensions, open up rifts in time, like in space, and could send things to like the other end of the universe.
Right.
But at some point, that those abilities just like stopped. The time travel stuff is because Immortus like drew that ability out of it to save a planet and pull it out of limbo. So like that's like 90s stuff. But like as far as like the other abilities, I think it just was just too silly and too complicated. So they just kind of chipped away.
Right. But
So
if there's any time to bring it back, I would say bring it back now when Thor is this powerful. Like,
right, and that's exactly what Ewing does. Like, and it's such a perfect way to bring those abilities back, so he doesn't feel like overpowered.
right.
But he should feel overpowered now.
Yes.
Like in the past, there had to be some limitation. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like the fact that he can basically say, and I really do appreciate the fact that he's not sticking to calling it the Odin Force
Right.
because Odin is gone. He's not around anymore. Like, at least at this point in time, he's dead again.
If anything, I would call it the Odin Sun Force.
Yeah, like
Like,
they're calling it the Thor Force, which is what it's been called in the past, or the All Force, or the All Power. Like, and I appreciate that like line because it makes it seem like it's now Thor's power and he's not just borrowing from his father.
right.
But he is getting used to it still. Like he's having to use abilities he's never been able to before
Exactly.
because the challenge calls for it.
Which brings the All Sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And which brings us to what he does to Tyrannos to finish their fight. So he doesn't beat Tyrannos, he just opens up a rift in space and sends him to the yawning void,
Right.
which is like the furthest point in the universe that you could be away, basically. So it's cool to see Thor not only be like powerful, but also like be smart and clever in how he fights, because this is a fight that he would have 100% lost if he had continued it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So because he's already like using the all power to like strengthen his lining and strengthen his attacks, and it's still doing nothing to Toronto's.
Yeah, I mean, all he could do was basically just battlefield remove him, take him away, and hopefully come
Yeah.
up with something better. But come up with a better plan by the time he comes back, because he will eventually come back.
Right. And then what follows, Thor catches his breath for a second after Toronto's has been sent away. This is another very cool moment, man,
Yeah.
because this is all stuff that Odin used to do in like the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Like when a battle on Earth would happen, it would destroy the city. Like he would just hand wave it away, and it was like magically fixed. Like it was like time. It was like time travel.
Yeah.
Like he would like send. He would like fix it all somehow magically.
Right.
So the fact that they basically apply the time travel ability that Mjolnir has, but also with the abilities that Odin was able to use to fix everything is very cool.
Yeah.
So it's like he fixes like all of the destruction, the Statue of Liberty, everything has been fixed. What's also nice is they don't like hand wave the destruction, like there are still people that have been hurt or died or what have you, but they don't ignore that. He just says like I was able to fix the destruction, but like the people I can't fix.
Right.
So because right here it says Odin has blessed me, or Bragi perhaps. It worked at least partly. That was the other thing too. I like that he is invoking the names of other gods,
Yeah.
because it makes it feel more like they are like powerful, and they all have these like specific traits and abilities. So for him to like invoke another god's name and say like bless me and give me this like what I need in this moment.
Right.
I don't know. It's cool, man. I just like just the little details that I really appreciate the most, I think.
Yeah. You
But
would tell
yeah,
class just kind of diving into every little detail of this lore,
right.
and you could tell he really did his homework before laying all this down on the
Yeah.
pen. Just pen.
Yeah, because this like this piece of dialogue here says Odin has blessed me, or Bragi perhaps. It worked at least partly. The damage is undone. Those trapped by rubble and freed, those injured may be reached and tended to, but the dead remain dead. And as Toronto's target, to stay here is to risk further loss of life.
Right.
So that being said, where does Thor go? He goes to the moon, the gray area of the moon, where the Inhumans used to live, but it's like one of the only two breathable atmosphere spots of like on the moon that have oxygen, right?
Right.
It's gray in the blue area.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, the gray and the blue area. So Thor's at a point where now he's like really, really feeling the effects of the all sleep, and it's really starting to weigh on him, and he's like having to take a breather. So he left to the moon, and he's basically awaiting Tyrannos' return for him. So and he knows that he's probably not going to either be awake, or if he is awake, he's probably going to lose that fight again. But somebody meets him on the moon, and it is his brother Loki.
Right.
And as they have a very interesting exchange, because you know Loki Thor thinks that Loki has come to aid him, and he thinks that like, oh, this is perfect timing, like Toronto's is on his way, at least I'll have more of a fighting chance with Loki next to me. He kind of explains the situation to Loki, and Loki says like, all right, like I'm not really here for this. He asks him a question like, will you trust me? And he asks him in like several different ways, but Thor's like, he's wiser, he's smarter now, so he understands that the question is probably going to have like it's probably going to have a catch to it. And he asks him again like, do you trust me? And he says, do you trust me as a loyal subject of Asgard? And then Thor says, yes, I trust you. And he says, will you trust me as a sibling who loves you? And he says, of course I do. And he says, okay, one more question. And like we still see like every panel that goes by, we see the effects of the all sleep like weighing further and further onto Thor.
Right.
So just as he's about ready to like knock out, Loki asks him one more question. Will you trust me even as your enemy? And so, Thor hesitates for a moment. He's not really sure what's going on. And he says, yes, I will trust you, brother. Like, no matter what, I will trust you.
Right.
Um, and we get a new form of Loki. Like, I know it's what appears to be called the teller of the tales. So, I mean, if you've been following Loki for 10 years almost by this point. Loki is not old Loki. It's not evil Loki. It's not even MCU Loki. Like he's so far removed from any other version of Loki that we see anywhere else.
Right.
They are
Even
now.
to the
Sorry.
point where it's like he's like a guy, or he's like
Yeah,
genderless.
yeah. I was just gonna say like that was my mistake. Like Loki is like almost canonically like,
They
you know,
that.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like so they don't conform to the either gender norm, and they kind of just exist at
Right.
who they need to be
But they
when they
kind of
need to be.
flow with like more
Yeah,
masculine and feminine features kind of when they
yeah,
please.
yeah. Kind of the depending on the situation.
Yeah.
This kind of seems like almost one Ewing being like this is set in stone now.
Right.
This is who they are. This is who the character is going to be for while I'm writing them, and even like the character design. Like I'll show it. So this is the Teller of the Tales Loki.
Mhm.
Um, what's interesting is we're coming off of the Loki miniseries by Dan Waters, and that kind of it doesn't necessarily put him back into the God of Lies or God of Evil cat persona again. It's almost like it's a mix of his God of Stories self, their God of Stories self, and their um God of Lies self, and they've been like put together
Right.
because you're not necessarily because you can still tell a story and it can still be a lie.
Of course.
So what this teller of tales Loki could very much just be pulling the strings, and they're saying, "Hey, like this is the story that I'm spinning. It's true to me, but it's a lie to others."
Right. But
So
we also got to remember that there was an Utgard Loki at the end of the first
yeah,
issue, which
right,
if there is an Utgard Thor, there's of course an Utgard Loki. But what does that mean? Since he was kind of narrating and
right, and
being a
that's
god
the
of
other
stories
interesting
himself.
thing. That's the other interesting thing to keep in mind is because in Defenders Beyond, Loki is able to like, yeah, they have narrative abilities. Like they can like interact with the narrative being told, like the story itself being told, and like on a meta level, they're able to interact with the story being told.
Right.
So what does that mean? Like, does that mean that this is something that Loki has a direct influence over and they can influence events? Like if there's enough people believing in that lie, like there's a lot to go off of here, and it's very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to the rest to see what comes next.
Of course.
But I guess the final tidbit for Immortal Thor would be these Loki horns. They look very similar to the horns that Utgard Loki has.
Right.
So there's very obvious connections here. What they are, we don't know. But regardless, we are in for a ride, man.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm loving this whole immortal thing. I'm loving that they're letting him cook. They're giving him room to breathe. They're giving him room to set up. I honestly can see this being as good or better than Immortal Thor, even,
Yeah.
which is saying a lot. Um, I know we're wasting a little bit of time here. I know we're talking a lot. So do you want to just kind of go into the Flash so we can just kind of deep dive on that? And we can just kind of do a Thor Flash deep dive since
I
I
mean,
think we're like 20.
yeah, I didn't realize that was going to be so long.
No, it's okay, dude.
let's
But I
let's
figure I figure if you're gonna, yeah, you want to do an Ultimate Invasion, we
yes,
can totally get there.
I'll let you take Ultimate Invasion.
Yeah. All
I
right.
mean, Thor was kind of it's a dense read because there's just a lot of like in it. It's hard to
Yeah.
like say like, hey, this is what happened. Like with this, you could be like, this is what happened.
Right. Because I mean, there's not too much setup to this as there is to Thor. But with this here, I mean, this is completely Jonathan Hickman right out of Secret Wars. The Ultimate Universe died in Secret Wars, and now the Maker is back. What 8 years later to start up some shenanigans and pretty much take every plot device from every kingdom in the Marvel universe to be able to make his own universe. And this is the birth of the 1610 universe. And in this universe, the Maker is pretty much bending it to his will, and it's a whole universe of a past, present, and future timeline already in it. It's already established
Right.
once it's made, which is pretty crazy. And kind of some out there concepts where the Maker has a city inside of this universe that kind of works on its own time whenever it needs to, so he can.
Which is kind of how the city worked in the original Ultimate Universe as well.
Right. Right. But this is so he can kind of go in there and kind of just tinker with the universe and kind of, you know, confirm or deny any experiments. Uh, Pretty much through all this setup for number 4, we see that the Maker has basically taken the spider away that would bite Peter in this universe. So Peter never becomes Spider-Man, as far as we know so far.
Right.
And Tony Stark is not the Iron Man in this. It is Howard Stark. He's got Howard Stark in here. And not only that, the Reed Richards of this universe is the Doctor Doom of this universe. And he has Howard and him working together on the Immortus machine. Why is the Immortus machine important? Because we also have Kang. Since there's a past, present, and future, we got Kang in the future. And he's trying to manipulate the universe from that end to the past.
Right.
So it's kind of a thing of who's going to get to who first, Kang from the future to now, or Maker to Kang. And at this point, you know, it's time traveling wobbliness. It's even time loops within time loops in this. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. But we get to basically Howard knowing that this universe is basically made by a false god.
Yeah, it's like wrong. Like it's not meant to exist almost.
Pretty much everything that Howard sees that's set up in this universe, he is distraught by. He set up how the kingdoms all basically fake wars to keep people in check, and
yeah,
it's a pretty dense thing. It's like kind of like Game of Thrones, very huge setup. Like
yeah, I was just gonna like we talked about that this week. Is like it has like that Game of Thrones Westeros vibe to it,
right? And we can have a pacifist, Immortal Hulk, who, yeah, you know, the Rasputins own their own. We got Khonshu and Ra. We got so many of these.
Yeah, I mean, you even have the Braddocks who own their own section of this world.
Exactly, and pretty much by pretty much. Oh man, we're running out of time here. 10 minutes. We got this.
Yeah, we got
But so pretty much what it goes down to is the fight actually happens where Howard Stark has to make and fix the Immortus machine because now the Maker, in a fight with Kang, has lost part of his brain. Literally, part of his freaking head is what just shot off. It's just a hole in his whole head. So he's having a really hard time remembering things, which is why he's relying on Dr. Doom Reed and Howard to finish the Immortus machine. But Howard Stark, of course, has something up his sleeve after probably talking to Tony and Tony putting it in his head that he needs to do something about this and fight back. Tony's also a kid in this.
Right.
And basically, we find out that he gives the Maker a fake Immortus machine. He puts the actual Immortus machine within him and opens up the door to the future where Kang comes through to get the Maker.
Yeah, I mean, and cleverly enough, you know, the two of them dropped the shields for the city because otherwise it never would have happened. That was the only way for any temporal like interference.
Right, until the Maker actually does put the shields back up. So now it's kind of like this in this city, in this dome, is this time traveling crazy fight that's going in its own time in this universe.
Yeah, because they've said it's what like it was like every month is 1,000 years or something, right?
Something like that, yeah. And they said what they got like 2 years left in real time for this thing to get done.
Which is like so like I've seen a lot of talk online how people are saying like that they're dead and they're gone. They have to be in stasis, right?
Right.
There's no way that those three are gone. Like Kang, Maker, and Howard are all still just like stuck in there.
Yeah, and it's mainly because
the rest of the ultimate too.
Yeah, and you see the Rasputins and all them talking like, can we really do whatever we want? We'll be smited by God once this is over in these 2 years. Can we really just do whatever we want? Which is why they come up with their own idea, not the Maker's idea, to split the states up basically and take parts of the states.
Right.
But, in this, we see Kang come down and we see everybody in this huge fight. Not sure if those were Captain America clones or if they were Captain America, you know, pulled from different points of time.
Right, or alternate timelines, what have you, yeah.
Yeah, we're not too sure, but there was a huge war going on. And basically throughout this, we see kind of Howard Stark take things into his own hands and kind of just explodes in this huge explosion in an attempt to take out the Maker and Kang all at once to kind of take away both the false gods who are manipulating the universe. And of course, we see Howard go up to Kang, take off his mask. We don't see who it is under, but we can kind of guess who it is. Uh, Pretty sure it's Tony, an aged up
I
Tony.
mean, there has to be, especially with how that ending, you know.
Exactly. And that's basically at this point outside of the city in stasis, Tony's still a child. And Reed Doom basically goes to him with all the information of that Howard had and everything they went
Yep,
through.
and the broken Immortus engine.
Exactly. And then they have the broken Immortus engine. And of course, we see Tony say, I'm going to need a suit. And we see him in an Iron Man colored version of what in the future looks like Kang. It's
Yeah,
basically Iron Man colors. The
going
future,
by Iron Lad, which
right?
is appropriate.
Right, which is another thing of the Nathaniel Richards line of like, hey,
Other
this
version
is
of Kang.
yeah, this is the younger version of Kang. And so I think everything's set up for us to believe it's Kang, but if we know Jonathan Hickman, he likes to pull the rug from under us after setting us up.
True, could be a twist.
So I mean, next is a one shot for Ultimate Invasion, or I mean Ultimate Universe. And I guess it's gonna kind of show the status quo. Maybe we're gonna see
Right.
the 2 years after where the city is no longer in stasis.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, we have I think we have a lot to catch up on still too, like with the ending with Iron Lad and Doom finding Cap in the ice, you know.
Right. That was a pretty cool ending scene.
So is this one shot going to be them set like gathering the team, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see
Is that going to be like Captain America, like Ultimate Captain America? Is he going to be like his brash, more harsh self, like from the Ultimate Universe? Remember that Captain America was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
He was kind of a.
And I don't think it will be because Hickman's been pretty like to the point of it's the Ultimate Universe when it came out originally was the world outside your window.
Right.
So if he's doing that again, which he's said that a couple times in interviews, I don't know. It could be a really, really awful Captain America.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
could.
we don't know.
Yeah, and
It could
especially
be
if
the worst human being alive. We don't know yet.
yeah, and plus we don't really know what Reed Doom is going to be up to either.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, and and he's just been trapped, so we don't know what his end game might be now that he has some freedom.
Right.
So
And we also know that Ultimate Spider-Man is coming, but like I said in the beginning of this, Peter didn't get the spider. So
right.
who is going to that's the biggest question right
I
now
guess
is
it's
we have
Miles,
a
man.
setup for only Hickman can set up a book where we know nothing about it and we're all stoked about it. We have no idea who Ultimate Spider-Man is. We're just stoked that Hickman's doing an Ultimate Spider-Man book in his new Ultimate Universe.
Right, right.
So,
That's all I need, man. We're good to go.
yeah, I mean, I'm all in. I'm excited to see. I mean, in the main universe, we have Nightcrawler Spider-Man now. So who the
Yep.
hell knows who's going to be Spider-Man here? They haven't even hinted or even built up
Right,
to even give us anything to guess about.
right.
But based on what the Maker is, I'm just wondering what his intent with that spider is and who he expects
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's very
Hit up
interesting.
Flash before we
Yeah, we
roll
can
up.
talk a little bit about it if you can,
That's
man. We
fine.
got we got a couple minutes.
Well, we'll speed through it because
Yeah.
I mean, it's dense, but I think we can tear it through real fast.
Yeah.
Issue really opens up with Bart and Max just kind of getting ready to run whatever race they're running next. Now that they've left the end of Adam's run, the 1 Minute Wars finished up, they're off together on their own. They're getting ready to break the Speed Force barrier when Max gets a vision of a buffalo. It's tailored specifically to him from the Speed Force. He's not sure what it means yet, but he thinks that like there's something's messed up with the Speed Force, and this is the first indication that we get. We jump into Wally's fighting a bunch of gorillas, so we kind of immediately assume Grodd's in the mix. These people start getting put into stasis bubbles, null spheres, as what they're called. So it's kind of like they're set outside of time as long as they remain in these bubbles.
Right.
I don't know what this is going to lead to or what Grodd's plan for these characters are, but he shows up eventually. He kind of leaves us with a little bit of like a spoiler, I guess, or a foreshadow of my condolences, Flash. I have heard the news. Breakups are the purest pain of all. We know based on the first issue or on the first story, Flash 800 from Spurrier and Diodato, that him and Linda are kind of on like rocky territory right now.
Right.
I wasn't too sure about it when the 800 story came out, but I'm more confident in what'll probably be a good like plot thread to follow.
Yeah, it's
From
believable. It's believable.
it very seems much like it's rooted in like postpartum depression and her having to cope with the fact that now she doesn't have those powers after experiencing that, and is like literally has to slow down
Yeah,
compared
she's
to her
slow in a
family.
fast family. She's
Right, exactly. So next bit we see, a suspicious guy talking to Mr. Terrific. Him and Waller having a quick conversation about the speed force fluctuations, if there's anything going wrong, what he's noticing. He doesn't really tell Grodd what's going on, or not Grodd. He doesn't tell Mr. Terrific what's going on, that he's having these reality slips. So it's kind of weird. But then we have a scene with the kids. Jai's doing some weird stuff with the little person in the basement. It's kind of creepy.
yeah.
Grodd shows up again. We see this Blue Street character. We're not going to be able to finish this in time.
No, we're not. But I mean, we could always do another video later. We had like 3 other books we wanted to do,
Yeah.
but we're planning on being able to record these things longer. It's kind of just a first try, see how it went type of deal. But want to thank you guys for watching.
Yes,
This is
thank you
Kate
very
Pat.
much. We love Flash. We don't want to talk no smack about it. It was pretty good. All right,
Yeah.
that's the
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a
you
good
guys.
one.
Later.